Um, Hi, hello, and welcome to everyone joining us today for the Breeding Approaches for African Forgotten Foods event. This event is a collaboration between Innovate UK KTN and the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, or FARA. My name is Pedro Carvalho, and I'm a Knowledge Transfer Manager in the Agri-Food team at Innovate UK KTN. Before we begin, some briefing housekeeping notes. If you have any questions for our speakers or panelists today, please type these in the chat. We will try to answer as many as we can during the Q&A and panel sessions. You will be muted throughout the webinar, but there will be a networking session at 11 where you will be able to speak directly with others. Please introduce yourself in the chat and feel free to use the space for networking. We have interpretation available for this meeting. If you are using a desktop or laptop, you will see a globe icon on the bottom right of your screen. That is the interpretation icon. Click it and select your preferred language. You can hear me or listen in French. If you are using a mobile phone, there will be 3 dots at the bottom right of your screen. Press it and you have a series of options. Click on language interpretation and choose your preferred language. If you have any problems accessing this feature, please use the chat option and one of my colleagues or the interpretation support will be happy to help you. I first want to give you a brief introduction to Innovate UK and why we are all here today. So, oops. Innovate UK KTN supports innovation through building powerful connections. We work to support innovation both in the UK and international through our Global Alliance team. This event is part of AgriFood Africa Connect, that is part of the Global Challenges Research Fund AgriFood Africa program. With the AgriFood Africa Connect, we want to bring together innovative people and organizations across the UK and Africa to address key challenges in the African agri-food sector. We are doing this through growing connections and building communities focused around specific sectors and topics. We're supporting new collaborations with our innovation awards, and we work to disseminate information from existing funding like the Agri-Tech and the Energy Catalysts. So, why we are all here today? As many of you will know, around 3,000 edible plants have been identified. 7,000 of those have been used as crops in our history, but currently we rely solely on 4 crops for 60% of our calorific intake. It's easy to understand and history has shown us that many times that relying on a small number of species can be risky to food security and the environment. Forgotten foods or underutilized crops, crops for the future. There are many names for these. I guess the consensus now is on forgotten foods, can improve food and nutrition security and potentially reduce poverty. Today, we are exploring breeding approaches for African forgotten foods. And with this event, we want to bring together those working in the field to learn from previous experiences, discuss priorities, facilitate impactful introductions, partnerships, and future collaborations. I will now give you a brief overview of today's agenda. I'm doing now the introductions, obviously, and soon we'll pass it on to Dr. Agumya, the Director of Research and Innovation at FARA, our co-organizers. After that, we'll hear an introduction to the team and the main points of the African Manifesto of Forgotten Foods by Dr. Wole Fatumbi from FARA. Then we'll hear case studies from 3 speakers working on breeding forgotten food crops. And after that, we'll have a panel session to really dive into the topic at hand. And at the end, we will move on to a networking session where you will have the opportunity to connect directly with others. So Let's kick off today's event by hearing a few words from Dr. Agumya, the Director of Research and Innovation at FARA. Over the past few years, Dr. Agumya's interest has been focused on the deployment of GIS and remote sensing tools in development work on the African continent, notably towards improving food security, incomes, and resilience to climate change-induced shocks. So over to you, Aggrey.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure for me to make some remarks on behalf of FARA. I want to first thank you for taking the time to be part of this webinar. I am very pleased to welcome every one of you to this important webinar that addresses pertinent issues in the African Manifesto on integrating forgotten foods into the African food system. The subject of forgotten foods is increasingly gaining prominence. The 2021 UN Food Security Food System Summit dialogues help to increase the attention to this subject. At FARA, we are very happy to be playing a major role in this drive across the African continent through the development of partnerships for coherent actions. In this work, we're building on actions supported by the Global Forum on Agricultural Research and Innovation, GFA. These actions were geared to develop a global manifesto, building on the different regional manifestos that were developed last year. So last year we had an African manifesto on forgotten foods, and there were manifestos from other regions that were consolidated to have a global manifesto. Allow me to take a moment to introduce FARA. FARA serves as the technical institution of the African Union Commission and the African Union Development Agency on matters concerning agricultural research, agricultural technology, dissemination, and adoption. FARA is also the continental apex body for agricultural research and innovation stakeholders in Africa. FARA is mandated to convene agricultural research and innovation stakeholders, as we are doing today, to coordinate the operationalization of the agricultural research components of key continental frameworks, such as the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which is the agricultural agenda for the continent up to 2025. And FARA represents the continent in global fora. FARA performs its mandate by undertaking advocacy for science and innovation, supporting the strengthening of capacities, brokering strategic partnerships, and facilitating the scaling up of innovations and approaches. FARA undertakes these activities within the framework of programs and projects that are continent-wide and are developed and implemented in partnership with our sub-regional organizations and national institutions. I'll take the opportunity to mention the sub-regional organizations. We have ASARECA in East and Central Africa, CADESA in Southern Africa, CORAF in West and Central Africa, and NASRO in North Africa. We also have a strong engagement with the Africa Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, AFAS. And AFAS, the sub-regional organizations, and FARA, we work together as a consortium known as the CADAP XD4 consortium. I'll conclude on the intro by saying that FARA is based in Accra, Ghana. This webinar seeks to foster intercontinental partnership between Africa and UK-based research and development organizations working on forgotten foods. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Innovate UK KTN for extending the hand of partnership, which has led to today's webinar on developing plant breeding approaches for African forgotten foods. And this is the first step. The webinar is the first step in this partnership that we have huge expectations of. We hope that the COVID pandemic will continue to go down and allow us to have a full value of bringing intercontinental partners together to discuss pertinent issues in a face-to-face format. During today's event, as Pedro has mentioned, we will hear about the important role of forgotten foods in supporting nutrition and food security in Africa. We will also explore the role that plant breeding can play in this dimension. I encourage everyone to explore the full opportunities in the breakout session to broker one-on-one partnerships to advance our different research endeavors. Let me conclude by thanking you for joining us today. I look forward to fruitful discussions in the course of this event and seeing how we can continue to work together together as a community to deliver change and impact around breeding of forgotten food commodities. I thank you and look forward to our deliberations. Over to you, Pedro.